Welcome to India!
Jana Gana Mangaladayaka Jaya He Bharat.
It is the largest democracy in the world, with over 1.3 billion people.
But, and where did India come from?
Well, actually, it all started around 200 to 500,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found remains of a skull and stone tools of an early species of man, known as a Homo erectus, but nothing really happened in that time.
But 12,000 years ago, the modern humans, Homo sapiens, settled in the Indian subcontinent. This was also when Scandinavia was finally getting settled. Stuff finally started happening. At that time, the Ice Age had ended and the climate in India was finally warm and dry and ready to be settled. Fishing. The first settlement of modern humans were found in Bhimbetka, which lies near Bhopal. These people were Mesolithic and they lived on hunting, fishing and gathering food.
And then around 5,300 years ago, the Bronze Age started in India thanks to the Indus Valley Civilization. They lived around the Indus River, but they even lived around the modern-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. The first cities in the Indian subcontinent were founded by the Indus Valley Civilization. So the Indus civilization was similar to the Mesopotamian and ancient Egypt civilizations. The people of the Indus civilization began to develop new techniques in metallurgy and handicraft. They even created copper, bronze, lead and tin. But then around 3,700, most cities of the Indus civilization had been abandoned, and there were not many people due to various reasons.
Then after the Indus Valley people of the Vedic period began. The Vedic people, also known as Aryans, were primarily known for speaking in Sanskrit and bringing Hinduism to India. And these people existed from 1500 BC to 500 BC. Hinduism is the biggest religion in India and also one of the oldest religions in the world. It started thousands of years before the birth of Christ. It can even be traced before 6500 BC, when the Hindu text, the Rig Veda, was written. But the origins of Hinduism cannot be traced back to any individual who started it. There's only one god in Hinduism, but there are thousands of other gods that are just representing an aspect of Brahma. Så kan vi börja med det.
In 500 BC, Siddhartha Gautama was born in Lumbini, which today is in Nepal. Siddhartha Gautama was a prince who later became enlightened and became the Buddha. The core ideas Buddhism are about leading a moral life, being mindful and aware of thoughts and actions, and developing wisdoms and understanding. Another core belief in Buddhism is reincarnation, which means being born again. In Buddhism, you will be reincarnated in an endless cycle unless you become enlightened, and only then you will stop reincarnation by following the so-called Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path contains 8 rules that you have to follow in order to become enlightened. Some examples are that our actions have consequences, karma, that death is not the end and our actions will affect us after the death.
Around 200 years later, Chandragupta Maurya founded the Mauryan Empire, which actually became the largest empire that has ever existed in the Indian subcontinent. It was 1.5 times bigger than modern-day India. The last emperor of the Mauryan Empire was Asoka, and he was famous for popularizing Buddhism in India. He himself became a Buddhist, which convinced a lot of people to become Buddhists themselves. And he also made Buddhism the state religion of India. When Buddhism started to become more popular, it even began to spread out of India, primarily over to
Let's say China.
but after Asoka's death, many people stopped being Buddhists and turned back to being Hindus. And then a bunch of other empires were started, like the Gupta, Prahitara, Pala, Chalukya, Chola, and Pandya dynasties.
A new period of India started, 14 to 15,000, known as the colonial period. It started with a failed attempt from Christopher Columbus, who was supposed to discover India and colonize it. But instead, he came across the Americas. But then, near the end of the 15th century, the Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama became the first European to re-establish direct trade links with India since Roman times. After this, a bunch of different countries started to colonize with India. Primarily Denmark.
Dansk jävlar. Dansk jävlar!
Denmark, France, and the Dutch in the 17th century. This continued till the 18th century, when France and Britain struggled for dominance.
Then the British defeated the Indian ruler Tipu Sultan in 1799. And this marginalized the French influence in India, and the following marginalization of the French influence in India, Great Britain started to rapidly take over large of the Indian subcontinent in the middle of the 19th century. Great Britain had almost taken over the whole Indian subcontinent. And in 1858, the Indian East Company, that had been ruling since the 1600s, transformed into the British Raj, which controlled all of India instead of just colonizing it. The British rule in India was cruel. Britain was earning a lot of money from the people in India, primarily because all of the tea and cotton that could grow there.
But the people in India were definitely not getting any wealthier because of this. There was a huge starvation going on during the British Raj, so millions of Indian people were dying left and right. There were just a few British Raj leaders that ruled over the entire country. For every one British citizen, there were 1,500 Indians. But the British rule in India was finally ended in 1947, thanks to Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of the Indian independence movement, who is very famous for being a non-violent protester and inspiring civil rights movements all over the world.
1950s to 2000s were filled with loads of important events, so we can't really bring them all up right now. We just summarize them quickly.
In 1950s, India becomes a republic with Rajendra Prasad as the first Prime Minister of India.
In 1960, India becomes more aggressive and annexes. UN declares war on Pakistan first in 1962 and later again in 1965.
In 1966, Indira Gandhi, daughter of the former President Nehru, becomes the first and to date the only female president in India's history.
In 1971, India declares war on Pakistan for the third time in 10 years. This time India wins, and the new country Bangladesh is formed.
In 1974, India becomes a nuclear power. The operation code name was Smiling Buddha, and the Prime Minister at the time Indira Gandhi called this a peaceful
nuclear explosion.
In 1975, India declares a national emergency, which means that the state can take any action that they want, and the people cannot do anything about it.
In 1977, the democracy in India is restored, and Indira Gandhi is voted out, and Morarji Desai becomes the new prime minister. And later, in 1980, Indira becomes elected again with a huge majority.
In 1984, India fights with Pakistan on the highest battlefield on earth, and they managed to capture Sishan.
Dennis!
Also in 1984, Indira Gandhi got assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards.
And Rajiv Gandhi takes Indira Gandhi's place as prime minister.
In 1989, Rajiv loses in the election to VP Singh.
In the 1990s, Chandrasekhar succeeds VP Singh and becomes prime minister.
Later again in 1999, India fights another war with Pakistan, known as the Kargil War.
In the new millennium 2000, the Indian parliament gets attacked by two terrorist groups.
In 2007, Pratibha Patil becomes the first female Indian president.
Okay. And then again, in 2008, Mumbai gets attacked by this same terrorist group that attacked the parliament. In the Mumbai terrorist attack, over 166 people died, and 600 people got non-fatal injuries.
And from 2008 onwards, not much has happened. But if we compare the history of India and Sweden, we realize that they are very different. For example, India has been in 19 wars in 1947.
What?
While Sweden had its last war in 1814.
No way.
They also have had female prime ministers and female presidents. Meanwhile, we in Sweden have not had any form of female leaders. India is also a nuclear power, which Sweden is definitely not. India also has had a lot of problem with terrorism since 1950. India has had 78 terrorist attacks. Meanwhile, we in Sweden have only had 7. But how different is Sweden and India?
Nu.
Well, let's start with the politics. India's democracy, much like Sweden, they are, however, a republic. Meanwhile, in Sweden, they elect their leader with a multi-party system. We also do in Sweden. The current president in India, Ramnath Kovind, is the leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is a right-wing party, but we in Sweden have a left-wing party.
The societies in Sweden and India are drastically different. The Indian society is extremely hierarchical and patriarchal thanks to their caste system. The caste system divides the Hindu people into different groups based on their karma, which is basically good things that they've done in their life, or bad things, and their dharma, which is basically duty. There are 4 groups in the caste system. At the top are the Brahmins, you know. They are usually teachers, priests, or other people of intelligence. Under the Brahmins are the Kshatriyas, who are warriors and rulers. And under them are the Vaishyas. They are usually farmers, merchants, or traders. Then come the Shudras, who are laborers or just common workers. Then at the bottom of the list are the Dalits. The Dalits are outcasts and usually get jobs as such as street sweepers or latrine cleaners. Look at him. He is not very happy. The caste system dominates the social and religious life of many Hindu people. Rural communities are often arranged on the basis of castes, and upper and lower castes are always segregated. For example, you cannot share things with other castes. If you were a Brahmin, you could, for example, not drink water from the Shudras. And you're not allowed to marry outside your caste either. But one of the biggest problems of the caste system is the treatment of the Dalits.
Dalits are often segregated in their homes and even in their schools. Dalit children are often made to sit in the back of their classrooms, and they are often verbally and physically abused by their teachers and classmates. They are not allowed to own land, and they are forced to work in horrible conditions. And they are also often abused by police and other upper caste members.
How is this legal then? Well, the Independence India's constitution banned discrimination on the basis of castes, since they wanted a level playing field for all the classes in the caste system. And they wanted to correct historical injustices, but this did not work so well. The discrimination law is different in every part of India, so it is very unjust in some places. Meanwhile, in other places, it is better for the lower classes. Injustice against the lower caste groups continue to this day. In a 2005 government report, it said that every 20 minutes, a crime against a Dalit is committed, and another government report in 2007 stated that 77% of Indians live on $0.50 a day, and a majority of them were Dalits.
So this is definitely very different compared to our Swedish society, since the difference between our social economic classes are extremely minimal compared to the Indian society.
But if 77% of Indians live on $0.50 a day, how does the life of an ordinary Indian look like? Okay, now we're going to meet an Indian who we are going to interview. His name is Bevakup, and he is a Dalit who is living in the slums of India. Hello, what is your name?
Bevakup.
Okay, Bevakup. You are an Indian, correct?
Yes, I am.
Oh, but if you were to look at the caste system, where would you be?
I would be a Dalit, the lowest in the caste system.
Okay, how is life as a Dalit?
Horrible. I face discrimination daily, and I had a very hard life. I work as a street cleaner in my slum, and the conditions are horrible. My slum, Dharavi, is one of the worst in India. There are around 700,000 people who live there, and it's only around 2 kilometers squared. So the population density is horrific. There are around 270,000 people per kilometer here, which makes it one of the densest areas in the world.
Do you get any help from the government?
No, it is a very hard life as a Dalit in India. It is not common to get help from other castes and government, and you are often looked down upon by the most people in India.
Okay, there we have it.
Ja.
Okay, now we have looked at the differences between India and Sweden and how the society and the political system of India looks like. And to finish this documentary off, we are going to show one of the best Indian cartoons they've ever made, known as Motu Patlu.
Why are we still
Attendance! Motu Patlu
here? Just to suffer?
Gattu Pattu
Present!
Ninja
Present.
Kenichi
Present.
आज का टॉपिक है डी से
This teachers, they let the kids teach you how to be cool. Let some new teachers Nickelodeon style.
And the Oscar goes to